Thank you very much. In fact, it all comes around. Of course, I got an immense chance from then Minister Joanna at pursuing new strands of work in my diplomatic career, but he actually pulled me out of an ambassadorship I was having in the Netherlands. I felt quite destabilized by that, but it turned out to be for a good cause. I got the chance to serve as his deputy for multilateral affairs, and therefore make my little contribution to the effort to have Romania join NATO, an effort which was successful. Let me start by congratulating you and your organization, Andrei Țărnea, of course, and the other colleagues. I respect very much what you do, and I take the chance to apologize that I missed on many of your invitations and events. I not only treasure the intellectual energy that you are generating in the system, the way in which you are putting Romania on the map of Europe and beyond, sometimes more effectively than we managed to do, and in a more direct manner, and also the expertise and many projects that you are willing to help, no matter what government is in power at some point or another. If it has a good project for Romania, you are there to provide intellectual expertise. I'm not going to deliver a keynote speech. I'm just going to perhaps say a few words to set the scene for a possible debate and interaction. There's many reasons to that. First of all, there's much more knowledgeable people than I am. I'm a humble practitioner on these issues. I see Sorin Ducaro joined, so I hesitate even further to lecture on these issues. Second is that I'm also a host of my distinguished Dutch colleague, who is after fortunately having been able to go through the full spectrum of issues with a good depth and a good level of understanding between us. She unfortunately has to cut short her stay here because the sacrosanct Dutch Parliament is conducting this evening or early evening a debate on the Dutch participation into an operation, the Mediterranean Sea. So maybe just to point to a few things. In fact, it's I can easily refer to the brief I had for the discussions with my Dutch colleague, and which is very, very fresh in my mind. But also pretty much the same discussion I had yesterday with Ursula von der Leyen, our German colleague in Berlin. As you can see, there's quite an intensity in inter-allied defense ministers. I'm very grateful that you made this point about some times in history when defense ministers are actually called to the front in as far as foreign relations are concerned, to a greater extent sometimes than traditional foreign diplomatic establishments. I guess this is one of those times because of the context, security context we are living in. So we are seeing an intensification of consultations between allies, because there's slightly over 2 weeks before an important defense ministerial at NATO. I take the cautiousness to not call it a decisive defense ministerial. It's going to be a first step, we hope meaningful, in taking the decisions from Warsaw a step forward, but for sure we will still have to work at putting them in practice through subsequent meetings. I have in mind, I think, already the one in February 2017. There's going to be enough topics to take up then, but again, we hope to see some results, and this is partly the reason for diplomatic frenzy between allies that are quite close together. I'm going to host the Portuguese colleague on tomorrow, and it goes on like that. The other important strand of our concerns and another reason for meetings is the fact that there's an accelerated timetable for implementing the EU global strategy, for giving our reflections to the ideas proposed by France and Germany with a view to deepen European defense. And the timeline, as I said, are very tight. We need to see where we stand, what we can agree on, and what the EU leaders at the end of the year will be able to take stock of and provide guidance on further guidance on that basis. And as far as Romania is concerned, of course, I guess everyone knows that we were on a race against the clock ourselves, since as the alliance decided to move from reassurance to deterrence, to a robust deterrence and defense posture, and we agreed as NATO defense ministers to have this posture and forward allied presence throughout the eastern flank back in February. The fact is that the intellectual, political, military construction on the security arrangement in the north, the Black Sea, was far more advanced at that time, and it could have been more easily developed and fed with concrete contribution that had already been pledged by many allied nations. So we had to first of all put the challenging security context in this part of the transatlantic space on the map, not only strategically but in operational terms, and adapt the kind of arrangement for a forward presence in the north to the needs and the possibilities in the south. So now we are discussing about enhanced forward presence in the north and tailored forward presence in the south. In fact, we hope that by the end of the process it will all come down to just forward presence, maybe with different underpinnings. There is a military difference between enhanced forward presence and tailored forward presence, but again, at the end of the process, we should have a homogeneous allied posture and presence throughout the eastern flank. What is important for us is to translate into practical results the outcomes from Warsaw. We have a quite complex, sophisticated arrangement in the south. There is no comparison with what has been developed in the Baltic Sea. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. They are not comparable. The security context in the north is quite different. Is predicated on different parameters than the one we are having here and we are witnessing here at the Black Sea. And then from the beginning, our arrangement is more comprehensive in the sense that it covers all domains, namely land, air, and maritime, plus an intensified training framework that we have devised. Romania has been very, very active. It was the main proponent from this part of NATO of these ideas. It worked very closely together with neighbors and allied riparians at the the Black Sea, and we got to this point where we need to make sure that the brigade, the multinational brigade that we have proposed and that was decided in Warsaw is really multinational. It's not just the Romanian brigade that gets to be painted with NATO colors, but is in a position to attract and to integrate concrete contributions from other allies. And I'm very pleased to report at this point in the process that there's already a series of meaningful commitments in that direction. And then we have to make sure that we have a clear understanding on what we mean by the maritime component and the air component of forward presence at the Black Sea. In as far as maritime component is concerned, we're in the stage where to first agree on an enhanced framework for maritime training, plus a coordinating element at the Black Sea. We would like to see that agreed upon at this stage, and then we will decide who is doing what, who is hosting what, because this is not what matters at this point in time. On the EU track, as I said, there's frantic process of reflection and of putting forward contributions from the 27 capitals, and see what of the proposals that are put forward by France and Germany are having a chance to take off at this stage. Whilst we all agree a stronger European defense is in the interest of Europe, of the European Union and NATO alike. We heard an exceptional meeting a perfect meeting of minds on this apparently paradox by both the Secretary General of NATO and the High Representative of the European Union. I congratulate you for for featuring her in your proceedings as well. This is absolutely remarkable. So for Romania, this is the chance to be a part of an advanced process of deepening cooperation, of further integration, where we would be present with ideas, with contributions to the decision shaping from the very beginning. One of the ideas, because it's not necessarily new concepts, it's concepts that are put in a new context, post-Brexit context. One of the modalities for their promotion, in case we cannot work at 27 on all aspects, and some of the member states would like to go faster in a more restricted formula, is the so-called permanent structural cooperation. We have not, as Romania, already decided on our stand on this, but I wouldn't exclude anything at this stage. We were part of the first ever structural cooperation that the EU has seen, and that was in the field of justice on marital regimes. So we are examining all of this. That was basically what we keep discussing in these bilateral meetings. I promise not to have anything that resembles a keynote speech. It's just a teaser. Let me say just a few words of introduction to my Dutch colleague. She had a brilliant career with notable stints both as a member of the European Parliament and as a member of her own national parliament, which is now calling back or biting back at her with the kind of tough and healthy debates they are having. She was named the most influential woman in the Netherlands last year. She still is, I suppose, but you get it only once. And she's a very, very prominent member of the community or family of defense ministers in both NATO and EU contexts. She was with the ministerial team that rolled with the presidency, a very successful Dutch presidency of the EU Council quite recently, and we discussed also about a possible transfer of their experience to our incipient task force that we created for that purpose in the Defense Ministry. She's very outspoken, and she's always making a strong and lasting impression, and is one of the more senior ministers in such position. This is a highly volatile position. So for you, almost 4 years in that high office, it's quite a performance. So this is singling you out again with the renewed expression of the delight for the wonderful discussions we had, very useful as well. I'd like to invite you to either go for a keynote speech or for the abridged version of it. Thank you very much.